Story 1. I'm 27F, having troubles answering people's questions about my pregnancy. Caused some drama with friends, all 20s. I'm 7 months pregnant with a child I plan on giving to a wonderful couple, closed adoption. I made this choice because the child was the product of non-consensual sex. I didn't press charges because I was a bit of a party girl, and didn't think I would be believed. I honestly have no idea who the guy was. I just remember trying to push him off and being too drunk to do so. My choice to not press charges. My choice to keep the pregnancy. My choice to adopt out. I am comfortable with these choices. They are private and personal, and I am keeping most of this to myself. My asshole friends and co-workers have turned it into a game. I was hiding the pregnancy until I started really showing a couple weeks ago. I get that people are curious about it. It's rather surprising, but I saw a betting pool being passed around the office. They are placing bets on who is the father. I was shocked and a little hurt. My friends are also curious. I have one close friend who basically knows everything. She's going to be in the room for the birth for me. And she's not telling anyone. So rumors are starting. One terrible rumor is that it's my, now former friend Karen's husband Troy's baby. Karen called me in tears. I went over to her house to tell her to her face it wasn't possible. She demanded to know the truth. I told her it was none of her business, and she blasted me on FB. Some friends have been really nice to my face, but everything gets back to me eventually. Some people are saying that I'm a paid surrogate. I guess that one is okay. I hate that people are talking about me like this. I made one blanket statement on FB yesterday. I guess I can't hide it anymore. Yes, I am pregnant. I am giving a lovely couple the child they have tried to have for years. It's very personal and private, and I ask that you all respect that. It's got a bunch of comments, but I haven't read them. I'm going to take a big break from social media. I don't know what else to do or say. I am uncomfortable with everyone's constant questions. I love my job and usually my coworkers. It's my hope that I can suck it up and go back to normal in a few months. Weirdly, I've got great inner peace with everything because I'm so happy to be giving the adopting parents, who are the kindest men I've ever met, a kindergarten teacher and a social worker, something they could never have on their own. Here's what I need from the readers of this sub. What can I say that isn't a lie, but will shut people up without giving out information I'm not comfortable sharing? I don't like calling her, the baby is female, an accident. The two people who know the whole truth, my friend and my doctor, immediately ask me why I didn't report it. I'm ashamed and humiliated. I really don't want to say much of anything. I think a big part of why this is so hard for me and those around me is that I'm usually really talkative and social. Loud-mouthed. I'm in sales, so now that I'm showing, I'm also dealing with these questions from strangers too. Should I go to my manager about the pool? Laugh it off? Wait for it all to blow over? TL. I need to figure out what to tell people about my unplanned pregnancy in a polite but firm way that will make them stop speculating. Update #1. OP updated in the same post on same day, 4 hours later. Thank you so much for all the support. I'm glad I posted this. I had a good cry, took an antacid, or 4, and went to the owner, Jim. I told him the truth, and I told him that I really didn't want the guys to know and I needed the jokes and talk to stop because it was hurting me. He hugged me and told me he was proud of me, which made me cry again. Fucking hormones. He gathered the staff and had a quick, what he calls come to Jesus, meeting. He announced that he would fire anyone who made me uncomfortable about my pregnancy on the spot, and that all the money from the pool needed to end up on my desk, pronto. He was great. He didn't share any of my personal info. He just protected me and made it quick and easy. After we dispersed, he told me I could have an additional week paid medical. I already have 2 weeks sick vacation I haven't used. I'm going to talk to my friend and tell her she can subtly let people know what happened, especially Karen. This baby bump is sales gold. I just landed a big commission while sitting. I still think, as great as Jim is, I need to get out of this town. I'll always be a trailer park slut to people around here. My mama died when I was real young, and I acted out a lot after that. Everyone knows what I did and won't let me forget. Despite working my ass off to graduate, working my way up to sales lead, buying my home, and fixing it up myself. I'm sick of Oklahoma. I'm thinking maybe somewhere in Oregon or Washington. Real pretty up there. Again, thank you for all the kind and helpful advice. I feel so much better. This has always been one of my favorite subs to lurk. Thanks. Relevant. Comment. Commenter 1. Your friends and colleagues are assholes. Tell people simply that you are not sharing details. Keep it simple. Sounds like you do have one decent, caring friend. After this was over, I would consider launching a fresh start. Given the circumstances of the pregnancy and how everybody is reacting, at least get some counseling to deal with this, and maybe plot out some goals and desires for the kind of life you really want. Sorry you have had such a bad experience. OOP. I am thinking about a new start, actually. I love my field, building material sales, and can do it anywhere. I don't have any family. My house would sell for double what I owe. I've been researching towns that I've always liked. My doctor gave me a referral for a therapist, but I wasn't interested. Maybe I should give it a go. Thanks. OOP on why she chose not to reveal anything to her friends about her unplanned pregnancy. OOP. I really don't want people knowing what happened to me. Like I said in my post, the first reaction was, why didn't you report it? I hate that I didn't. I hate that some dude is out there thinking he can do that. I hate that I used to drink so much. I hate that because I used to drink a lot and hook up a lot that people think so little of me. I just don't want everyone to know. I don't want this little girl to ever find that out. Did OOP report the situation to HR? OP, we're a smallish outfit. We don't have an HR. We have an owner-manager who I really respect and is kind of like a second father to me. We're 7 guys and me. I've always been one of the guys about this kind of stuff. I should go to the owner and tell him what's up. I've been avoiding him. I've been avoiding everyone. I don't want to be pitied, but this shit it worse. I'm all over the place sorry. I'm shut in my office with the worst heartburn I have ever felt, trying not to cry. OOP should consider about leaving her job. OP. I still have to work with these guys for another couple months, 40, 50 hours a week. Maybe longer, I'm still deciding. They just got their PPs smacked by work daddy for being insensitive in a place where we regularly tease each other for everything. They did something stupid, but I still want to get along with them. Update #2, Raredit, March 17th, 2017. First, I'd like to thank the kind, understanding folk in this sub for your help when I posted this a few months ago. I had a few PMs asking for updates and how everything went. It's been a wild ride. I'm posting this from a freezing but spectacular beachside hotel on the coast of Oregon. I had a job interview this morning that I feel really great about and 2 more lined up. My house sold fast and I have some money to live on and start fresh. And do I ever need a fresh start? A few days after I made that post, rumors started up again. I was pregnant with my boss's baby, some of you called that. And then it was a coworker's. And then my friend's husband again. To save face, I asked my friend to tell the right blabbermouths the truth. That backfired. Hard. Someone, or some people, I don't know, started posting on Craigslist about me and the baby. There's this section called Rants and Raves, but I guess people just post garbage there. I looked at some of the posts, and someone really has it out for me. They said I was crying rape because I was too slutty to know who the father was. They called me the worst names. I flagged what I could, but new posts kept popping up. I tried to ignore it. I had a good friend write me this long-ass text about how I was making it all worse with my rape story. I was devastated. I guess my prior life and reputation are all people there will ever think of me. I kept my head down and just tried to forget it all. It was affecting my work. I put my house up for sale and made a plan to GTFO. I was at 38 weeks and had resigned my position. My wonderful boss told me I could come back, but I don't want to. I was selling most of my belongings and packing what mattered to me. There's a knock on my door real late. Later than folks should be knocking. It was a man I kinda know from the bar scene. He was drunk and angry. He told me it was maybe his baby, and I had no right to call it rape. I remember talking to him that night, but I really don't remember it being him, but I don't remember anything other than pushing him off and wishing I was stronger. I told him to go home and to leave me alone. I'm trying to brief, but he made the next week hell for me. He was harassing me at my house every day and calling at all hours. He was threatening me and demanding a paternity test. I was terrified that he was going to mess up the adoption. I was growing more and more scared for my safety, too. I couldn't sleep or eat. My friend came over and we called the police and told them everything. The officer who came to my house was great. I don't know what they said to him, but it worked and he left me alone. I went into labor the next week. I ended up getting C-section because the baby had turned and was breech. One of her fathers ended up holding my hand. My friend was there, but only one was allowed in the room. He got to cut the cord. The baby was perfectly healthy and beautiful. She had this thick, dark hair, the chubbiest cheeks. Her fathers were instantly and madly in love. They took her home the next day. I had to stay a while because of the surgery. It was the hardest 3 days of my life. The hospital sent a therapist in, and she was helpful. When I was released, I spent a few days in a luxury hotel with my dear friend. I never went home. I paid someone to pack my stuff for me. I spent the next 2 months at my grandmother's house in Texas, recovering and thinking and waiting the cash from the sale of my house. I was terrified I would get a call that the man from the bar had somehow fucked up the adoption, but it hasn't come, and I grew less worried. I honestly don't care who the father is. I just want the baby to have a good life. I continued to see another therapist. When I felt well enough, we packed my rig and I took off. There was a vague plan of head west and find it. I went to the Grand Canyon. I saw the great white sands. I spent an entire freezing day staring at the ocean in Santa Monica. I did the trip cheap, mostly sleeping my car in cheap hotels. I spent time in every place that I found beauty. I landed here at the prettiest place I've ever seen. I got a good rate at a motel and got an Oregon driver's license. I thought about changing my name too, but I don't want to change who I am. Just the where. Wow, this ended up being a novel. Thanks again. Your daughter, I put up with more awfulness and had the baby. She is with her family and loved. I got the fuck out of Dodge. I'm happy. Well, I'm working on happy. I feel free. Relevant. Comment? OP, moving out of town, start fresh, make new social media accounts. OOP. Excellent advice. I used to love Facebook. I have cousins and such that I can only really contact through it. But I disabled my ACT during the Craigslist nonsense, and I don't miss it. I got a new phone number too, and only gave it to a few people I want to hear from. I was a little worried about no social media presence and getting a new job, but I'll cross that bridge if it comes up. I have a glowing recommendation from my old job and a proven record of success. That should be enough. Everyone here has been so nice. Not Oklahoma nice, that's just nosy nice. People here are chill and kind-hearted. The manager of the hotel I'm calling home at the moment, she just gives rooms to the homeless when it's cold. Doesn't make a big deal about it either. And the kids at the coffee shop I like are all real artsy and funny. I haven't met a mean or snarky person yet. I know I'm new, but it already feels like home in a way. Story 2. How do I, 28F, get my BF, 29M, to understand that I don't want to be her? 26/F friend? My boyfriend Lee and I have been together for 2 years. We've been living together for 1. Before we moved in together, he was living with a friend from work, Kim. In the very beginning of our relationship, 2 months in, I was approached by a lot of his co-workers telling me that Lee and Kim used to hook up a lot. That, of course, made me feel uncomfortable, and instead of being an adult and talking about it with him, I got drunk one night and had a breakdown. Not my finest moment, and I've apologized to both him and Kim about my behavior. Lee assured me nothing ever happened between them, and that it was just workplace gossip. I completely believe him, and even if he did sleep with her, it's in the past and he's completely committed to me. After we moved in together, his contact with Kim dwindled to just the workplace and occasional get-together with mutual friends. Unfortunately, Kim was not so forgiving about my little immature moment. I didn't have the breakdown in public or around Kim, but Lee did tell her about it for some reason. I wasn't too happy about that, but I made it a point to try and take Kim out to lunch and drinks and apologize. I thought all was well, but apparently it's not. Over the last 2 years, Kim has been nothing but awful to me. If we're all out to dinner, she ignores me, rolls her eyes if I start speaking, will cut in front of me as I'm speaking to people like I'm not even there. Whatever. I get it. I tried to be nice, but I'm not her biggest fan either. What has really set me off is the fact that Kim is above Lee in management and is in charge of expansion. She has approached Lee multiple times about going to open a new branch of the company in a city that is a 3-hour flight from where we live. Now, opening a new branch for this company requires the person to live in that new city for at least 2 years, and she has put Lee's name in the running even though he has told her straight up he does not want to go. I'm fucking livid, and surprisingly he is too. But he doesn't see it as a slight towards me, just that she'd like someone experienced to open the new branch. And he's the most experienced in the company to do it, so it could be that. But, I don't know, I feel there's another motive as well. After all of this, Lee still wants me to try and be friends with her. I have told him that a friendship between us just isn't in the mix. I've tried everything to get her to like me, thrown her surprise birthday parties, moved her into a new apartment while she went back to her home state for an emergency. I even bought her a tour at her favorite distillery, all to no avail. I'm done trying. I've told him that I, in no way, want him to stop his friendship with her, but I would rather he not talk about our relationship with her, and that I'd rather not be in a room with her, have dinner with her, unless there isn't a sizable crowd where I can pretend she's not there. I can deal with her at birthday, holiday events, but besides that, I really don't want to be around her. He's obviously hurt that we can't seem to get along, and he keeps trying to push me to be her friend. Apparently, he still thinks that she needs more time to get to know me and see how sorry I was about a mistake I made 2 years ago that I've tried so hard to correct. So my question is, how do I get Lee to understand that Kim and I will never be friends, and that I really just don't want to be around her if I can manage it? T.L. Dodar. Boyfriend's old roommate, friend, and I don't get along for a lot of reasons, but he's still pushing us to be friends. How do I get it through his head that we will never be friends? Relevant comment. Scooter Magooter. How bad was the blowout? Were you yelling? Throwing things? Hitting? That may have a lot to do with why she is being so cold to you. Oopie. Not bad. I got mad and screamed at him, but she wasn't home. I didn't throw anything or hit anyone, just a lot of drunken crying and yelling. Update, Wayback Machine Sia 22, 2017, 12 days later. So it wasn't really popular, and I didn't really respond in the thread, but I did read all the responses. I appreciate the time people took to reply and give their advice, as well as the people who DM'd me and really helped me figure out the situation. So to start off, I talked to Lee to really get down to whether or not he did sleep with Kim. He swore, again, that it never happened and he would have no reason to hide it if it did. I asked him if maybe Kim had a thing for him that he didn't know about, and he thought about it and figured it could be true. I told him again why I didn't want to be her friend, and how I didn't like the way she treated me. He wasn't aware of how bad it was, so I asked him to make a conscious effort to try and be more aware when we're hanging out together. He's very aloof about a lot of things, makes me glad I made the first move in the relationship. So a week goes by and a couple of his buddies from work want to go out to dinner. We agree, and when we show up, Kim is there. She hugs Lee, but then ignores me. I thought Lee missed it until he looked at me and gave me a raised eyebrow. Dinner goes on, and Kim is doing her usual thing of ignoring me, rolling her eyes when I talk or just rudely interrupting me. When she went to the bathroom, Lee turned to me and said, "I definitely see it, and I'm so sorry." So that was really nice to hear. As dinner was winding down, one of Lee's co-workers gets up to make a toast. He goes on and on about Lee being such a hard worker and how they're going to miss him when he moves to the new branch. I was shocked, so I just said, "What?" Without realizing, I said it aloud. Lee was just as shocked and told them that he hadn't taken the job and he didn't want the job. That's when Kim said that he was one of the top 3 picked to go down. Lee was pissed. He got up to go get another drink and I went with him. When he found out that Kim put his name in the running, he went to the higher-ups and told them it was a mistake and that he was not interested. Which means Kim must have found out and talked the bosses into putting his name back in the running. We ended up leaving early and going home. I told him I'd support him if he wanted to go, but he is very much against going. He now sees why I didn't want to be friends with her and why my assumptions about her were completely true. He went back to work on Monday and asked to be moved to a new department that's not under Kim. He went to HR about Kim overstepping her boundaries, and he's even thinking about finding a new job where he doesn't have to interact with her. I'm so glad he finally saw what I saw, and he's completely done with Kim. I'm excited to see how losing her will help improve our relationship in the future, and he promises to be more aware of how his friends treat me and to respect my wishes, not force a friendship on me if I don't want it. Tell the Dodger. Had a serious sit-down talk with Lee. He promised to be more alert when Kim was around, went to dinner with co-workers and Kim. He saw how rude she was, and he saw how she's manipulative on a different level. Lee is cutting Kim out and trying to find a new job, so he doesn't have to see her again. Relevant comment? Lost, sad, confused 11. Now that your husband has taken back all control from her, you need to take steps and protect yourself in case she lashes out. Make sure you lock down your social media and block her everywhere so she can't see what you're up to. Check locks on your doors and consider installing security cameras in case she goes full psycho, since she knows where you live. If she is his manager, she has access to a lot of your husband's personal info, including DOB and possibly SSN. Keep tabs on all your accounts and make sure she doesn't misuse that info to put him at risk of identity theft. It's good that your husband talked to HR, so hopefully she can't do much damage at work. He still needs to be vigilant, though, and avoid being one-on-one with her in case she tries to accuse him of something. I know I sound paranoid, but with her level of crazy, it's better to be safe than sorry. Up. Definitely didn't think about any possibility that she could go postal, but you're right. We should be aware and be ready for anything just in case. I might ask that we get security cameras that we can take with us because we plan on moving to a new place in a couple of months. I'll definitely let him know to keep an eye on his personal stuff and keep checking in with HR if he notices any difference in her behavior at work. Pananana. Wait, they're ex-roommates, and she's his boss? Were they roommates first or co-workers first? OP. They started at the company at the same time and became friends as co-workers. Then they moved in together and became roommates. After a couple of months, Kim went out for a promotion and got it. That's how she became his boss. Richmen_y'all. Those hookup rumors. Did Kim start them? OP? I'm assuming they did. Or other people. It's hard for some people to see two attractive single people of opposite genders living together and not think they're hooking up. How did OOP's BF miss all the signs with Kim? He's a pretty clueless person most of the time. He didn't know I was hitting on him for the first month of knowing him. I decided to just make a move, and he was completely shocked that I liked him because he liked me. So, I can see how this went over his head. Story 3. My boyfriend's 26M optimism and immaturity almost destroyed me, 25F financially. I cut him off, and now he feels abandoned. Is there any hope he'll grow up, or am I being the immature optimist now? My boyfriend and I started dating in July of 2014. He is the biggest optimist in the world and lived a pretty cushy life as the only child of divorced parents. We both lived separately and had jobs that covered all our bills and then some. He bought an expensive sports car, gaming computer, and purebred dog. Important later. He was in school while I had graduated a year before and started work at my first big kid job. Life was great, and the first 6 months were some of the happiest times of my life. The first week of January 2015, he was wrongfully terminated from his job. A new supervisor was on the warpath to replace everyone on BF's shift with his friends and waited until the new year, after the holiday rush was over, to start cleaning house. Government sided with BF during the unemployment claim, and BF started receiving benefits. He decided to focus on finishing school instead of looking for more work. This where the cracks started. He was supposed to graduate that May, but he failed a class and couldn't, so he had to go to school in the summer. In June, his savings ran out, and he could either afford his car payment and insurance or rent. His lease was up at the end of July, so I agreed to pay his rent, and he could move in with me in July and finish school. He found out weeks before he was supposed to graduate that he needed one particular elective to get out. He had to go to school that fall, too. I demanded he get a job to help with expenses, as I wasn't planning on having to support him for so long. A month or two, fine. 6 months? No. He got a job as an insurance agent for an extremely reputable company at the end of July. Turns out this job is commission-based. Being the optimist he is, the manager's talk of being able to make unlimited amounts of money drew him in. I paid for him to take the certification tests he needed to work, and he started trying to build a client base selling structured financial products. He made and makes nothing. He'll have a $700 payday for a small close, then nothing for months. He's out there busting his ass every day, but building a financial client base from scratch without any family privilege or existing networks is ridiculously hard. In September 2015, we downsized from my fancy downtown apartment to a POS house on the edge of the ghetto. I paid the security deposit and double rent at both places for a month, as that's how the lease overlaps worked out, totaling about $3,500. By November, my savings was almost gone and I had to liquidate shares of my family trust, on which I took a penalty, as my grandfather did not want us to access it before age 25, to get us by. By deck, I had $300 in savings and nothing left in my family trust. I had spent about $17K since July supporting us. His job, he needed money to take clients out for lunch and coffee, his dog, and my dog. Since September, we had been having recurring fights about money and chores. I expected him to pick up 90% of the housework as his way of paying me back. He never shaped up on either front. He just kept repeating to me the same things that his manager said to him to draw him in. It'll get better. Everyone struggles at first. If you hang on, you'll make it. Once I make it, we'll be rolling in it. Every time we had a fight. Every time. 2 weeks before Christmas, we had this fight again, and I demanded he do something other than feed me bullshit inspirational quotes. I left the house in a rage and drove to buy cigarettes. I was thinking of who I should text and ask to crash for the night when I got angry. Fuck no, I'm not crashing on someone's couch while he lives on the house I pay for, sleeps in the bed I pay for, and eats the food I pay for. I returned home and gave him 10 days to pack his shit and get out. He moved into his dad's house, and I spent Christmas morning chilling with my dog and returning his presents online. We started hanging out again in January of this year, and things seemed to be going well for his business, enough for him to consider getting an apartment. I told him he could move back in, and if we couldn't split expenses evenly at first, he had to get serious about doing chores and sticking to my budget. It was fine at first, but by April he wasn't doing any chores, and I was back to paying 100% of his and his dog's living expenses. He also was about to not meet quota for that quarter and asked me to sign up for a policy and then reverse it after quarter end so I'd be reimbursed. I lost my shit on him. I work in capital markets. I can't afford to commit financial fraud for him. I told him I've sacrificed enough for him. He can't come for my integrity too. Bonus: the friend who he did rope into doing the reversed policy still hasn't been reimbursed 5 months later. We had another blowout fight, and he majorly stepped up on the chores front, which has sustained to this day. Money was still touch and go. When he didn't get paid, his fancy car ate it up every month. He landed a big case in May and paid his half rent in June for the first time and offered to pay all of July, which he did. By the second week of July, he was completely broke again and told me last minute he couldn't pay August rent. I had to scramble to get the cash needed in one account to send the check. He couldn't afford to pay for his half of groceries like he promised either, so that was a scramble too. I'm so sick of this. I work an incredible job for my age, paid off all my college debt 8 months after graduation, and own my car, yet I'm living paycheck to paycheck supporting him. There's always something, even if it's a legitimate something, that keeps him from paying his half. It's been a fucking year and there hasn't even been marginal improvement. His job is meant for filthy rich trust fund kids who can afford to be this broke while they build their client base. I admire his optimism, but he's not suffering for listening to it. I am. I have enabled him far too long, and after the most recent fight about money, I realized he is too immature to be trying his hand at this job. He complains when he meets with clients that spend their money on cars and trips and toys instead of buying a policy from him, when he blew his money on a car and a gaming PC when he had a steady-paying job. He has no problem having regular circular fights with me, yet won't ask his parents for help because that would be awkward and I don't want to lose his father's respect. He's hurt that I don't trust his promises when he's barely kept any of them, from his graduation date to his bills to chores. He is too immature to see the larger picture, and because I've been enabling him to a fault, he has never needed to because the consequences don't fall on him. They fall on me. Last night I told him I'm not renewing the lease and am moving out by myself. He followed me around the house pleading with me and asking me questions. How do you feel about me? What about us? Where will I go? What will it take for you to let me come with you? Questions I have answered every single fight. Questions he needs to answer because it's his fucking life. I refused to answer them again and went to bed. He stood in the doorway and said that stupid Marilyn Monroe quote about not deserving people at their best if you can't handle them at your worst. I said he was totally allowed to feel that way and walk. He shut himself in the computer room and slept on the couch that night. I can't believe he feels like I'm abandoning him after all I've done. He doesn't understand how hurtful it is when he tries to pay his half of rent and bills by spouting off platitudes about struggle and success. It makes me feel so fucking disrespected, and I have told him this every fight. And despite having this fight regularly, it's like he's not even listening to me. Why would he? I haven't made myself worthy of respect by being his financial doormat and not sticking to my boundaries. At this point, I feel he is using me as a safety net. He knows I won't let him or his dog starve, so he doesn't make himself care about coming up with the money for food. He is deluded by his optimism so much so that he breaks every optimistic promise he makes to me. He talks about how he thinks a client will buy an expensive plan, but then they get the cheap one and now he can't pay rent. He talks about how he met loads of people at a networking event, but only 3 call him back, and he needs money to take them out. He says he's set to get 40% enrollment on a corporate contract, but only gets 11% so he can't pay for groceries this week. I used to think he was lying to me, but now I see he's lying to himself. He hasn't matured at all and grounded his expectations in reality because I've been standing in the way of it. Because of this, I don't trust him to give me a realistic end date to supporting him because he'll probably be wrong about that too. And now that I'm done being his atlas and holding his world together, he's starting to panic. It bothers me so fucking much that he didn't take me seriously until I let the hammer drop on him, as it should have been in the beginning. The irony is not lost on me that he's a broke financial advisor. I missed the first 6 months of this relationship, when he had a job that paid well enough to cover up his financial immaturity. I could have taught him a few things that might have stuck instead of picking up all the slack and mommying the ever-living fuck out of him. I miss going to sit-down dinners and football games and movies with him. I miss the feeling I had a month after I met him, where I knew I would marry him. Now I'm not sure at all. I'm sad I love him. It's a burdensome tether instead of the inner flame it used to be. And maybe this is my own fatal optimism speaking. But that guy is still there, buried underneath all this bullshit. He just has to grow the fuck out of it and take his own risks to learn his own lessons. I can't even explain how badly I want the guy I met back. I'm tearing up writing this. I agreed to him moving back in this year because, according to him, he only needed a few more months to make it and be stable. And I wanted that for him so badly so we could go back to enjoying life together. My hope is hamstringing me, just like it's doing to him. Can our relationship survive now that I'm seriously taking steps to ensure it doesn't bankrupt me? Or am I being stupid and thinking anything will change? Will he move in with his dad and just get him to be the new enabler? What am I doing wrong that's preventing him from understanding how I feel? Dadar. BF's optimistic dreams about his job duped me into supporting 100% of his living expenses for over a year. I've had enough, and am moving out on my own so I can start saving again. He feels abandoned. I feel used. Is there a future for us at all? Relevant comment? Commenter 1. No, you couldn't have. People have to want to learn for lessons to stick. I understand why you're having trouble walking away because his strengths and weaknesses are so closely tied. But you'd be making the exact same mistake he is by staying. Doubling down on a bad decision because you're convinced you can turn it around with just a little more time and investment. He can't, and you can't either. Stop feeding into the sunk cost fallacy and go. OOP. This is so true. I'm a realist from an abusive home, so he was such a bright light of positivity when I met him. Now it's burning me. You're so right about me making the same mistake. I know what I have to do. It's gonna suck doing it, but I'm worth it to myself at least. Commenter 2. There's no hope. You cannot change anyone but yourself. He's the only one who can change himself. Instead of changing, he's doubling down on a philosophy that has proven to be a failure. Why isn't he getting another job? Even if he can't let himself kill this dream and quit, he can at least work a second job, one that would actually pay minimum wage. OOP. He still has office hours during the day, and it infuriates me that they don't pay him for that. He can't get a second job for that reason, as he's meeting clients before and after common working hours. He can't even be an Uber driver because his fancy car is on the restricted cars list, and fuck if he's going to take my car too. I hate his stupid fucking car so much. It represents how financially immature he is, because he didn't even use his money wisely when he had it, and continues to butt-fuck him to this day. Did I mention he hasn't paid taxes or registered it either because he doesn't have the money? Not sure who will be paying that inevitable ticket, but it sure as hell won't be me. Commenter 3. While he's certainly to blame for being irresponsible, I think you also share the blame for spending over $17,000 on someone you had been dating for less than 2 years at that point, and then taking him in again and putting yourself in the same situation. You ask if your relationship is repairable, but this isn't just about what he can do to shape up. What are you going to do to avoid making a series of very stupid choices again in the future when he messes up again? You can't control the choices he makes, but you can control the choices you make, and you've made very poor ones. Personally, I would never want to put myself in a relationship with someone who can't support himself and had sucked my bank account dry like that. I would feel like his mother, not his partner, and that's supremely unattractive. You're better off cutting your losses and learning from this. OOP. Totally agree with all of this. Can't even explain how disappointed I am for doing this to myself. I would feel like his mother, not his partner, and that's supremely unattractive. This is what started a big fight about chores. He complained about a lack of sex, and I blew my fucking lid. I pay for all his shit. Cook and clean, grocery shop, run errands, do things for the dogs, and he wants more? Why would I want to fuck my child? Was my response. Commenter 4. I'm not sure I understand how you went from living in a nice apt to living in a ghetto and spending $17K in the course of 6 months, all because this guy moved in with you. You were already paying for your living expenses too, right? So all this guy should have added to what you were paying by yourself is the food he ate? I mean, the guy sucks, dump him and all that. But I feel like we're missing a part of the story. OP. I paid for his rent, utilities, groceries, his dog's food, any fast food or restaurant we went to, his test certifications, the deposit on the new apartment, clothes, a business suit for his job, and any client expenses he had. He paid 1.5 months' rent in a year. Otherwise, I didn't see a dime from him. Everything I paid for. That's the whole story. Commenter 5. Do you know his parents well? Maybe you should have a candid talk to his dad and outline how deep a hole his son is in. You can't give any more of yourself to keep him afloat, but his own family should. I mean, not pay for him, but be there when he stumbles because he's going to. Also, perhaps see a lawyer. You were living together, you may have some grounds to try and get that money back. GL. OOP. Both his parents hate me. Both are intense Christians who think what's happening is recompense for not getting married before living together. I'm the atheist harpy who stole their little boy from Jesus. They don't know the extent of what's going on, just that we are strapped for cash. But I guarantee if I told either of his parents that I spent $25K, $30K supporting him, they will shrug and tell me to learn from it. Update, Undit, September 21st, 2016, 1 month later. Well, a lot has happened since I made my first post. I guess I'll address it sequentially since that's how I'm operating right now, moment to moment. After I made that post, I decided to truly cut him off. I changed the Wi-Fi password, froze the credit card I gave him, applied to close our joint accounts, and threw out any gifts I ever gave him. We were planning on attending a dork convention over Labor Day in Atlanta, for those familiar with the con scene, that I had budgeted paying for both of us over a year ago. I told him he couldn't go unless he paid for his half of the hotel and tickets, $600. Not sure why I did this instead of shooting straight and admitting he was out of his gourd if he thought he could go. Shouldn't have played any games, but I'm kind of glad I did because he told me he'd have $1,000 to me by the end of August. Over text, too, in writing. I was floored. Suddenly, he can come up with money for a weekend of partying and a chance to reel me back in? I said I would apply that to August's bills. Then he could start paying down the rest of the $25K he owed me for supporting him this past year before he could spend his money on luxuries like out-of-state vacations. This was over text, and he never responded and slept on the couch again that night. That was a Friday. Saturday morning, he left the house around 9 a.m. with his dog, leaving all of his crap in my house. I piled all of his and his dog's stuff under his desk and got rid of any pictures of him around the house. I blocked him everywhere but Facebook and text. I went to 2 rental house showings, loved one of them, and the landlord put a deposit down that day, went on multiple walks with my dog as well as a long trip to the dog park, and celebrated/vented/drank wine through Twizzlers with my next-door neighbor and her boyfriend. Ex-BF never returned that night. Sunday, I spent the day working on cosplays and outfits for the convention, as well as goofing off with my neighbor and dog. It was lovely. I kept waiting for this wave of sadness and regret to hit me, but it never did. He had been out for 24 hours and his name wasn't on the lease. I texted him that his claim to residency was gone, and he needed to come get his things with 24 hours' notice. He said he was coming that night. I said 24 hours' notice. He agreed to Monday evening. Monday, he picks up his stuff in his father's truck and gives me back the key. Hours after he left, he added a song to our shared YouTube playlist, Say Something by A Great Big World. I added Gravity by Sarah Bareilles and Too Good by Drake, then removed his access to the playlist the next morning. Yay, middle school communication methods. Wednesday, his best friend texts me like nothing is wrong. Thursday, I text my ex about when I can expect his check in the mail. He doesn't respond. Friday morning, I email him. At this point, as far as I can tell, he's gone no contact with me. I send him one last email a day later basically stating that, and he asks me to coffee Sunday night. We met up for coffee. He never mentions repayment at all, but in the discussion about our feelings, we both felt the same way about this: betrayed, abandoned, hurt, and distrustful of the other person. He felt I had lied when I said I was fine supporting him, and basically insinuated that I wouldn't want to be repaid if I believed in us because otherwise I was actually loaning him money under the guise of love and setting him up to fail. When I realized he felt just as used as me because I cut him off from my money, I knew I was done. My stomach sank like a weight. I let him finish talking, then we parted ways. He asked if he could contact me. I said I needed a break. The next day I emailed him about the $1,000 he promised me and reminded him he never discussed repayment at our meeting. He didn't respond for days. Then the day I was set to leave town for the convention, he replies saying the money was on the way. Cool. It can sit in my mailbox for 5 days while I'm out of state. Also, during this time he was telling mutual friends we were going through a rough patch, yet my friends were finding him on Tinder and OKC. I partied my tail off for the entire convention, and when I came back, the check was in an unpostmarked envelope in my mailbox. I cashed it and sent him an email telling him such, and asked that he use snail mail for future repayments instead of trespassing on my property when he knows I won't be home. I seriously wonder if he was looking for the spare key I left with the dog sitter. So creepy. He replied to that email with some mushy, "I love you and I know I fucked up," things claiming he is too nice and can't say no, and his urge to help others makes him neglect himself, and he needs to work on that. It was the most laughable apology on earth. "I was so nice and helpful that I couldn't stop myself from draining you of all your money and energy. My bad." I replied, "You broke my heart and my bank account. It will be a long time before they're both fixed, and by then I hope I won't be stupid enough to trust you with them a third time. I will be responding to emails about repayment, otherwise good luck with everything." He replied, "If I could take everything back that I did, I would. I love you. Name. With all my heart. I could have prevented it all. I could have taken action. But I let you slip away, and that'll be one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I'm truly, truly sorry for hurting you. I just want you to be happy. That's all I've ever wanted. I moved out of the house we lived in to a similar one a few streets away. Moving helped keep me busy enough to not think about this. I threw out all our mementos and pictures and shit in the process, so everything in the new place is all me. Just me. Now I'm settled in, and it feels like it hasn't hit me that it's over. I thought I would be crushed. And there were some lonely moments at the convention that caught me up enough to need a cigarette, but I just feel humiliated. I don't even have the urge to check his Instagram every time I see a picture of him. It just reminds me of how stupid and naive I am for thinking he was my one. I'm also super distrustful of my feelings now because of that. It wasn't a question in my mind when I met him that we'd be together forever. I knew I wanted to spend my life with him, like my name, like a fact. I see cute people out, or have great conversations, but I have no desire for anything more because I feel like my feelings aren't trustworthy enough to merit acting on them. They led me so far astray last time. But that's it, I guess. It's over and life is going on. Tildar, we broke up for good. Relevant. Comment. Commenter 1. I remember seeing your original post and wondering to myself what would happen. You handled this masterfully, and it's obvious you are much better off mentally and emotionally for dropping him from your life. You just sound happier in your writing, and for that I'm glad for you. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. OOP, thanks. It creeps me out how quickly he became a stranger right in front of my eyes. Anyway, the convention was helpful for jump-starting the old single bitch thing again, haha. That's the path I'll be on for a bit. Story 4. My 23F boyfriend, 25M of 1 year, is starting to gross me out, and I'm not sure if I'm overreacting. This is really awkward and embarrassing to share, but I can't think of anywhere else to get advice. I've been dating James for just over a year. We have a really good relationship, and we are good with communicating any issues that we have come to. I am very much in love with him, and we are happy. Now, maybe he is very comfortable with me now, which I know is a good thing. But I'm very frustrated, and I don't know if it's just me. This is the only issue I have with him. He's just constantly farting and burping, and it's starting to really gross me out. It feels stupid to even type that, but it's really become excessive. We are both graduated from school and work full-time. We do not live together, but he is starting to move into my apartment. This started about 5 months into our relationship, and it has gotten progressively worse. He will burp constantly and blow it into my face, to a point where I will start dry heaving, because he thinks it's funny. He does the same thing with farting, always trying to do it on me because he thinks it's hilarious. I know it's normal. I grew up with 4 brothers, but he is constantly forcing it to happen. This is not once or twice. We have spent almost every night together the past 6 months, and it will happen all night. All night. I have asked him to please stop because I find it really gross, especially the burping because he will do it in my face and it turns my stomach and he will apologize but still continue to do it. Or lean in for a kiss and burp in my face instead, then laugh himself to the point of tears when I act disgusted. I thought maybe, at first, he was just really gassy, and I should be more understanding because it's a natural bodily function. He does not do this when we are out to dinner or with friends. A few months ago, we went to a wedding together with some members of his family, and he accidentally burped really loudly like he normally does when he is alone with me, and our table went really silent and glared at him. I didn't want him to be embarrassed, so I high-fived him and said, "Good one," and the whole table started laughing and cheering, and he pulled me aside and said he was thankful I did so, as he was humiliated, but I broke the ice. I was a bit drunk and frustrated, so I asked him why he does it to me constantly, but he wouldn't do it in front of other people. His reasoning is that I am his girlfriend and he should be able to play around with me like that I was being a typical girl for finding it rude, uptight, high maintenance. I didn't want to argue about it, so I told him I was none of those things and he knew it. Cut the bullshit. We'll talk about it later when we're sober and just have a fun time at the party for now. And we did. But it never changes. I've tried to make plans to be out of the house when we see each other, because even though it seems ridiculous, it's starting to stress me out. I can't talk to any of my friends about it because they think it's so funny. He is a very sweet guy. I like spending time with him, but I feel nauseous when we are alone together because it's just so gross. He's starting to work longer shifts, so he wants to stay in a lot most nights to relax. He started doing it during sex, as a joke, and our sex life has really suffered because of it. A few nights ago, he was texting me before he got off work, complaining about his day, and he seemed really stressed out, so I told him I would come over and I'll make his favorite, and I'll make him forget about it. So I went over to his house and started cooking until he was off. After dinner, he leaned in to kiss me, and I turned my head because I'm so used to him burping in my face. We had an argument because he was accusing me of cheating. We haven't been having sex. I told him it was because of the burping, and he said I needed to get over it, that he was only joking and I was being such a prude, that his girlfriend shouldn't reject a kiss from him, yada yada. I told him that I've been saying this is a problem for a while. I don't think it's funny at all. I have thrown up because of it. He started to laugh as I said that, and I just kinda lost it. I don't really yell at people. I'm a calm and collected person, so I scared him a bit. I told him it was disgusting, and I am getting to the point where I'm no longer attracted to him, that I've been trying so hard to be understanding, but it's a two-way street. It wasn't to me about something being gross or funny anymore, it was about respect. He kinda got defensive, trying to throw in how I was overreacting, being ridiculous, but I shut it down and he apologized because he apparently didn't know I felt so strongly about it. He would try not to do it anymore at all. I don't care that it happens. I only care that he forces it, etc. Now, having talked it out, for the next couple of hours he actually didn't try to burp in my face or fart on me. I was so happy I could enjoy cuddling my boyfriend without trying not to vomit. So I started unzipping his pants to make him forget about his bad day. You already know where this is going. It's humiliating, but I'm going to type it out anyway, as I was trying to blow him. He pushed my head down so I couldn't get away and tensed up and started farting loudly while laughing. I was so frustrated I started crying immediately. I think he realized he did something wrong because he let go of my head and tried to hold me. And he kept saying, "I'm sorry, I thought you meant to do it less. I thought it was going to be funny, to break the tension from before." But I got up and left his apartment. That was 2 days ago. He has tried calling me, texting me constantly. I have not responded. His messages range from being very apologetic to very angry back and forth. I don't know what to do, and I feel like this relationship is over, but I still love him. I feel also really gross and violated in a way. Our mutual friends have been texting me as well, asking if everything is okay, and I've tried explaining the situation to my best friend, but he found it hilarious. So I'm afraid to explain it to anyone else. This is just so stupid. I literally feel like I'm crazy. Maybe I am uptight, etc. I also have a lot of his stuff over here that belongs to him, and I'm worried he will come back to get it and I'll have to face him. What should I do? Am I just overreacting? ... My boyfriend is constantly burping in my face and farting on me even though I don't find it funny. Am I overreacting? Relevant comment. Deleted? Fuck that. I grew up with 3 brothers and I wouldn't put up with this from a boyfriend either. Tell him, when you do this, it reminds me of growing up with my brothers, and you're starting to be about as attractive as a brother, as in, I am not attracted to you because of this. Stop it immediately or I'm going to stop this relationship immediately. You are seriously crossing my boundaries and this is not okay anymore. If he can't pick up on the fact that you are serious after that talk, dump him because he's about as mature as a 2-year-old. OP? That's how I feel. He's like one of my brothers. I tried telling him this, but I don't think he was taking me seriously. Thank you for your reply because I suppose it really is a boundary. And that's why I've been so upset about it and kind of invalidating my own feelings and believing I am being kind of ridiculous. Bloopity. Good God, just good God. After you literally screamed at him about it like a few hours ago, he thought it would be funny. Can you even picture being naked with him without gagging? Also, the whole thing is kind of hilarious in the I can't believe this is how a real grown-ass person behaved. You've got to be making this up kind of way. OP. To be fair, he did text, saying he thought it was only the burping thing that I didn't like that much, because it was what caused the fight, and that's why he thought it would be funny. but I haven't replied, because I know I mentioned it as well. Dream Queen, 9103. Why would anyone think burping in her face makes her mad? I know, I'll fart in her face. That'll charm her pants off. Update September 21st, 2015, next day. Thank you for everyone who replied to my original post, and also those who PM'd me. I wasn't really expecting as much support, but I'm glad that I'm not alone. Last night I was pretty miserable and just felt confused and sick about the whole thing. It really helped me deal with what I was feeling and rationalize, reading what everyone had written. I just want to clear a few things up before I get into how this has climaxed for me. My boyfriend did not start out doing this constantly. I remember the first time he did it, I was confused and told him right away I did not like it calmly, and he seemed to understand. I have never laughed when he did it purposely. I know the difference between an accident and what he does. A lot of the replies helped me examine my relationship as a whole. We have had other problems that seem to fit the same pattern. He had the same behavior with driving very fast for fun, and he had the same issue with playfully pinching and tickling, but he was doing it so hard it would leave bruises. I always expressed that I did not like this, but he was insistent that I was overreacting. When I showed him, he was actually hurting me. He stopped completely, and never did it since. I didn't think it was an important thing to bring up. I think it's a bit harsh to call him abusive, because he respected that boundary. I know a lot of people were suggesting that I do the same thing to him, or retaliate in the same way, and it might sound nice to entertain that fantasy, but I'm really not like that. I will never let someone else's actions define who I am as a person. I know I will never try to intentionally hurt someone, and that makes me have faith in myself. A few of you made me really cry because before I wrote my post I was completely unsupported, and I felt alone and, well, really ridiculous and dumb. So thank you very much for taking the time to help me even though I'm a stranger and none of you owe me anything, let alone your time and kindness. Thank you. Now on to today. I have not replied to any of James's messages. I blocked him on all devices. I feel like I basically told him was over and he knew that. I have messaged a few of our mutual friends back saying that I would really appreciate it if they would just drop it, that everything is okay with me, but the relationship is over between us. A post said I didn't have to explain the situation completely, so I did that. They seemed very understanding, except one replied saying, "Over a one-time incident? Get real LOL, but WE so long as you're happy?" It didn't really bother me because I know the truth. It was hurtful that James may have lied, but I'd rather surround myself with people who value honesty. I also invited my best friend over and asked him if he could help me box all of James's belongings, to which he agreed right away. He kept asking me what happened and if I was okay, so I showed him this post and he was disgusted. He apologized for laughing when I had tried to tell him earlier because he said he didn't know it was so serious. He offered to take James's belongings to him, but I made him promise to not be hostile or I'd ask someone else. He agreed. We spent a lot of the day in my apartment when the front door opened. It's hard for me to articulate myself, but I'll try to type it exactly as it happened. We both heard it and stopped talking immediately. It was James. I'm not going to lie. I was immediately frightened, and maybe I could have handled it better, but I kind of just stood there. I just didn't expect to see him. He has never showed up at my home or work without a warning. My friend asked him, what the fuck he thinks he was doing here? James kept staring at me and ignored him, saying, I thought you were dead or something. Why have you been ignoring me? My friend stepped in front of him and handed him one of the boxes and told him he could take his stuff and leave, that it was over, and I didn't want to talk to him. James laughed and made a move towards me and said I needed to talk to him alone, but my friend moved in front of him and told him that he shouldn't be in my house uninvited, that it was illegal and he was going to call the police. Then James got really mad and twisted his face all weird, and I can't explain it, but he started yelling, and it was like he wasn't the same person at all. He called me a slut and a cunt, and said that I was some ridiculous princess, and he just kept going. My friend telling him, that's nice. Now you need to leave or I'm going to make you. And then James threw down his box and punched my friend in the face. I don't remember exactly, but my friend fell back and James came up to me and he grabbed me and started shaking me, saying I was stupid for throwing this all away, and that I was probably sleeping with my friend. I was very afraid and I couldn't believe this was happening. My friend got up and grabbed him by the back of his shirt and threw him off me and shoved him out of my apartment. James ran away down the hall, kicking people's doors and screaming. My neighbor had come out of his apartment and asked what was going on, and I told him to call the ambulance because my friend was bleeding from his nose. I was so embarrassed. At the hospital, I kept embarrassing myself, crying and apologizing to my friend while we were in the waiting room. His nose is broken. He keeps making Owen Wilson jokes impressions, but he is okay. Now, I am at my friend's house because I am afraid to go home. He said I can stay with him for as long as I need to. I feel really awful that my friend got his nose broken because I was a bad judge of character. I also feel really guilty that I got so scared I just kind of stood there and let my friend get hurt. My friend is taking me to the police station to file a report, but I just want this whole thing to be over. But he is being insistent because I need to do this to ensure my safety. This is my first relationship, and I don't even know if this person was real. I didn't think this was even possible to happen. I don't understand what I missed, and I feel like I'm vibrating inside because of how frightened I am. I want to go home to my apartment, but I'm afraid he will come back. The way my head is does not make any sense. I feel ashamed even writing all of this because it was from something so small and juvenile, so I don't know, I'm just handling it weird or my head it blowing it completely out of proportion. How do I proceed now, after I file a report? Has anyone been in this same situation before? How do people hide that kind of anger for over a year? Why did this happen? I'm sorry for the questions, but I just can't make sense of my own thoughts right now. My ex-boyfriend came to confront me and hurt my friend. How do I make him stay away and get back to normal? Relevant comment. Downvoted commenter. I have not replied to any of James's messages. I blocked him on all devices. I feel like I basically told him was over and he knew that. I have messaged a few of our mutual friends back saying that I would really appreciate it if they would just drop it, that everything is okay with me, but the relationship is over between us. James kept staring at me and ignored him, saying, "I thought you were dead or something. Why have you been ignoring me?" I'm sorry, but this is unclear. You actually did tell James that the relationship was over, right? While his reaction was obviously negative, I can kind of see why it would be overblown if he finds out that he has been dumped by having his girl's friend hand him a box of his crap and tell him to leave his girl's house. OP. I did not explicitly say it was over, but when I had yelled at him before the blowjob incident, I told him I could not handle him doing it to me anymore, etc. But in his texts, between apologies, he said things like, "Have a nice life, you're not going to be hearing from me again," and that he was done with the whole thing and me being ridiculous. I can see what you mean, and that's what I'm worried about. From his point of view, maybe he didn't really mean to act like that at all. Final comment from OOP. This was my first relationship, so I wasn't really sure. I guess I didn't have anything to compare it to be like, this isn't quite right, and in that way I suppose I couldn't trust how I felt about it. But he has had quite a few other girlfriends. I guess my mistake was telling myself that he obviously knows better than I do, because he has dated prior to me. I don't know why, but it seems still alien for me to think of this as abuse, especially since he can't defend himself, but I know what you are saying. Thank you for your reply. I will take the things you said to heart and really take this time to look into myself so I can have healthier relationships and be a healthier person.